I haven't followed a straight line at all. So when I sold my business, there was kind of a bit of a valley of death moment after that. It is about proving yourself, and I still feel that I haven't proved myself and I've got lots to do. And I think that is definitely part of being an entrepreneur. You feel like it's never finished.
The thing about being an entrepreneur is it is a journey that is littered with things that you've never done before. Like, who says you can't?
I get to work with some absolute geniuses, some mad geniuses.
Welcome to the wild.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs in the Wild. Thank you for joining us. Today, I am joined by Andy Day, who is a serial entrepreneur, and he'll talk a bit about himself in a minute. But what we're trying to do in this podcast series is really unpack what it is to be an entrepreneur. What is it that makes them tick? What is it that makes them stand out? Could everybody be an entrepreneur if they put their mind to it and they found themselves in the right circumstances? And also looking at entrepreneurs, their impact on the world around them. How do they come up with ideas? How do they know what ideas to back? How do they know what ideas to back away from? So I'm really excited in this episode to be talking to Andy. And Andy, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
It really
Thank you for
is
inviting
great
me.
to have you here.
Yeah, what a pleasure.
Do you want to just say a few words about yourself? Like, who are you? What are you doing? What's your business? And what is driving you?
Andy Day. I'm the founder and CEO of Capital A, which is an M&A advisory for marketing services businesses. So I help owners of marketing companies, marketing agencies. I help them to either grow their business through acquisition, help them find the targets to negotiate deals, or help owners who want to sell find the buyers and get a good deal for them. That's what I'm doing right now.
You might not want to talk about this. That's not been your only business, has it? So I'd love to know a bit more about how did you get to your business that you're now leading?
Yeah.
Because you've enjoyed all sorts of thrills and spills.
I have. I haven't followed a straight line at all. In fact, it's been a fairly wonky journey to get where I am. I guess it started out really, my passion as a kid was more around music. That was my thing. Music was my thing. And I was in lots of bands, the singer of the band, guitarist in the band, keyboard player, those sorts of things. And we got to the sort of end of the 90s and I realised that wasn't going to happen. And I had the idea to move to London. I'd been studying at college, a bit of a late starter as well, but studying at college video production. And I'd done that again because I wanted to do something with music. And when I went for the sort of interview with the course leaders there, they said the only thing we've got close to music is video production because it's got a bit of sound engineering in. So I thought, okay, we'll do that. I'm not really interested in video. And I loved it, actually. I loved creating video. I mean, it was just an extension of what I was doing in music, really, and the two kind of married up quite nicely. And I was fortunate enough to get some work off the back of that. I went out to Switzerland and worked for Ford, doing marketing videos for them. But yeah, I got this idea to kind of quit music and move to London, one of those big things that Northerners do. And with nothing, no plan really, nothing, no money, nothing, just I'm going to London and we'll see what happens. And I was just really fortunate. Within 2 weeks of being here, I managed to land a job at MTV, which was an amazing opportunity for me. It was a real sort of eye-opener. I mean, I was working with like the likes of Zane Lowe, was it Trevor Nelson? There was a few other people there, but it was a real buzz at the time. And yeah, my job was discovering new music for the presenters of the shows, and getting it cleared with the legal department and getting it onto their shows. So I went through that first, and I spent a bit of time in London, a couple of years, working in the music industry, and then returned to the Northwest with the idea that I was going to do something for myself. My obsession at that point was the internet, and I was like, how can I do something on the internet? I'd realised that it was a game changer. It was a leveler. All of these big corporate operations, they didn't really know how to use it. They didn't, they were getting there, but they didn't really know what they were doing. So I set up a music website called gigwise.com, and I went about blagging guest lists and getting into gigs for free. I was out like 5-6 nights a week reviewing bands the first few months, but it snowballed. People wanted to work with me, they wanted to write for me, they wanted to take photographs. My photography skills were very, very limited. And before you know it, it was a movement in Liverpool, and it just grew. My intention really was never to have like a local music magazine. I wanted it to be bigger, and we were treated fairly badly as a regional music magazine, which pissed me off no end. But it was something that kind of really drove me early on. Was I wanted to be considered an equal to these other .coms out there. And part of the way to do that was to move everything back down to London. And we set up here, and kind of it all grew. The next 10 years was like the golden age for us, for publishing, for online publishing. And certainly we were involved with all of the big media companies, all the big marketing companies, putting together marketing campaigns, and some of it was just media buy-in, but more often than not, the brands wanted us to come up with something original, and we did. We were really involved in that. The business grew beyond just one website. We had one of the biggest celebrity gossip websites in the UK as well. Eventually, I bought out my business partner. I raised some investment. And I went on to sort of spin off the companies and sell Gigwise on its own, actually, for a nice little bit of money. It wasn't a huge amount, but that was kind of the journey up until that point. And then the jump off point, really, I guess, from that was the whole experience of going through that. I didn't realise at the time was a M&A process for myself. That's kind of one of the things that's really driven me to help other entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs in particular, get those exits that they want, that they dream about, and helping them understand that it's available to everybody and that it's an option. And that was definitely one of the things that got me into M&A. So when I sold my business, there was kind of a bit of a valley of death moment after that. A friend of mine who runs a marketing agency actually came up to me and said, I know you just sold your company and I need somebody to help me buy companies. And I'm thinking, because you've done this, you kind of get it, and you know what, you'll be able to help me finding the right types of companies, et cetera, et cetera. So I met with the chairman of the company. It was a PLC, it was a small PLC. And I met with the chairman. He was, a guy that'd been through the whole thing with Saatchi and Saatchi, then built out a big marketing agency in Australia, which he sold for a fortune, and then he was coming back and he was going to do it again in the UK. So he took me under his wing, told me how it was done, and I guess from there the rest is pretty much history. And I got my hands dirty with the whole marketing agency thing, and I haven't looked back since.
Yeah, so here you are,
yes, that's
all grown up
answer.
in M&A.
Yeah.
There's some really interesting themes that you just touched on that totally resonate with me, that I identify from our journey within Iris. Mm-hmm. And one of them is just all about the need to prove yourself, the need to do things for yourself, and also this sort of tension that tends to get baked into people's normal lives around their relationship with their bosses. And I've come to know this really well, that the best way to get the worst out of me is to try to tell me tell me what to do, and I didn't know until recently that was there, and I think it's at that point that I start to be able to understand that, hey, maybe I am an entrepreneur after all. Yeah. So I would find it quite difficult to follow other people's directions, passions, orders. Yeah,
that's definitely a recurring theme, and I don't know where that really stems from, but yeah, there is definitely a drive, and I think initially it was not really being able to find something that I could be serious about that wasn't music.
Yeah.
And so I had these kind of jobs that I didn't care about, but they funded what I was really interested in. So there was definitely that. But then the other half of that is being asked to do things by people in positions of power, I guess. And just that initial response is just a really sort of vehement no. And I don't know what that is about. We'll have to
Yeah.
get into some of that psychology, but it certainly is a driver for that. But also, I think it's a little bit as well. It is about proving yourself, and I still feel that I haven't proved myself, and I've got lots
Yeah.
to do. And arguably, I'm more successful than other people, but still, I wake up in the morning and feel like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I've got so much to do, and I've got to get up and do stuff and make things happen, and that's daily. And I think that is definitely part of being an entrepreneur. You feel like it's never finished.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I have been asked before about, within Irish, we built this global company, 1,000 people, offices all over the world. People say, "Oh, you must be really proud," and it's like, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think that's the emotion. And it's about, I don't think it's done yet. I think there's still so much to do, and so everything feels like a sort of incomplete work of art, and
Yeah.
working. There's always more to do.
And it's good. I think it's good to know that as well, because I mean, obviously, you've had huge global success with what you've built, and I think it's good to have that as a driver. But you can see when people get really affected when they've had like a small losing streak.
Yes.
And that can get on top of you as an entrepreneur and feel like, oh, maybe it's not for me. Maybe I can't.
Yeah.
It's just not me. I'm just not that lucky person. And then everything can turn around within a day.
Yeah.
You can just have a big, long run of luck and feel completely different about yourself. But then the week after, you're back to square one.
That's so true, isn't it? And I remember over the course of our journey, mostly it's been good and positive and relatively straightforward, but there's definitely been periods when it definitely hasn't been like that. And I think one of the things about the entrepreneur is that there is something deep with, and it's possibly linked to some of what you were saying around coming from the Northwest with nothing, having to do it yourself. There's no safety net. Who else is going to do it for you? And it creates a kind of resilience and an ability just to sort of keep going against overwhelming odds.
Yeah.
So you must have been through periods that are like that.
Oh God, yeah. I've been through some, really personally challenging moments where you feel like everything is lost and that there is no way back. And that, I'm saying that things can turn around in a day. They do, but those periods can go on for a while, and so it can be extremely challenging to have what my mum calls bounce back ability. I'm sure other people call it a similar thing, but just having that nature that you are constantly looking to bounce back, and I think that's possibly one thing that I identify with, is that I know that the next day I'm just going to get up again and go for it again.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's like there's a sort of I don't know whether it's sort of just instinctive, but there's a sort of mental coping strategy called just keep going, one foot in front of the other, one day at a time. And also just simplifying the task, because sometimes, you've got so many things to sort out. Or maybe just do one at a time and put them in some sort of order, and then you can resolve them.
Or not even putting them in order, but just doing one thing. I've got this kind of thing I constantly say to people is I just want to move the ball down the field like 1 inch at a time.
Yeah.
So I think what some people do that can set themselves up to fail is that they want to give birth to something that's like perfect and fully formed.
Good. Yeah, very good.
And when you do that, or when you set yourself up for that to be the level before you're able to go out and show it to the world, then it creates like an impossible moment that's never going to happen. Whereas I like to put things, and people do say this to me, why do you put stuff out that's a bit rubbish? But I don't mind doing it badly the first few times so that people can even give me feedback, and then I can improve it. So I've got a podcast as well, M&A Q&A. And the first few that I did as part of a course that I was creating for marketing agency owners that wanted to get into M&A.
Yeah.
And I was interviewing people that I knew were experienced in M&A, because I wasn't really, like 5 years ago when I was doing it. I started with people that were in my vicinity, people that I'd already been speaking to about stuff. But as I went along, then I went for bigger names like yourself. like Martin Sorrell and people like that. But setting myself up with something that wasn't complete was the way to get to where I wanted to be, which was, having an interesting podcast that people would want to tune into because there was some nice big names on there.
Yeah, I think that's really brilliant. That it's like I've always sort of thought about Iris as a more of a journey than a destination. Obviously, people do need either waypoints or destinations so that they can, benefit from it financially or know where they need orientation, need clarity. I think that's so important. I think, when you see entrepreneurs normally, the way that kind of people manage their personal brands is all about the success, the moment when they sold, the moment when they won the awards, or whatever the peak is. And most of their life has not been like that at all. It has been doubt, uncertainty, pressure, and working 20, ridiculous.
Yeah, I think
times.
as well in this sort of age of content or being your content, it's very easy to just try and put the best moments out there. And I fall foul of this all the time because you don't want to talk about your failures too much. I mean, people put a lot of trust in me as well, so I don't want to explain to them how bad I am at loads of different things. But by doing that, I think it makes you more authentic and real. But it's difficult to present to the world the worst possible image of you. But that moment when everybody suddenly finds out about how successful you are is not the entire story. It's all of the failure that came prior to that moment. And like I say about the bounce back ability and just being able to keep turning up and fail again is the difference.
I see the failure as so important and so positive, but it is about making it short-lived and making it...
at the time it doesn't always feel...
Not an existential moment. But it is about keeping going. I just want to talk a bit more about your business Capital A, because we have worked together.
We have,
and I will say that the experience of working with you in M&A is quite different. And I think what sets you apart is the fact that you are actually an entrepreneur, not somebody who has grown up in the world of M&A.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And there are certain traits, I think, about working with you that you just don't see with other M&A advisors. So I don't know if anyone's ever said that to you, or you realise that, or indeed whether that's deliberate or not.
It's not intentional. I think it is just a natural way of doing it for me and working with my clients. It's a natural way. I'm not intentionally setting out to be different, but I think I do realise that it is going to be a different experience. I mean, primarily because I think most M&A people get into it through a very corporate background, and also they've studied something super serious. So they're usually lawyers or accountants, and the people on my team, they are those types of things. But I think the initial part of M&A is really about relationships and networking and being able to see where the pieces of a jigsaw can fit together. Those things that I do, I guess, are definitely different than a lot of people that are involved in M&A who are they tend to be bean counters or people that are very good at understanding what the legal implications of stuff are. But for me, I would much rather deal with an entrepreneur at the sort of fantasy level and come up with the great ideas and then see what the guys can do to make it happen, rather than think about it the other way around, like, well, we can't do this, we can't make this happen. Or
I mean, that's such an interesting kind of clash of ideological management and culture, isn't it?
It is,
because in general, in my experience, working across the industry and working with lots of founders and entrepreneurs, normally they are passion driven, they are extremely charismatic, they don't tend to conform, they don't fit, they don't really fit boxes, and they've often done something incredibly imaginative and with lots of lateral thought and obviously the hard work. And then they meet the system, they meet the establishment, where it is linear, it is about risk, it is about legals, and
there's a possibility that you can get ground down during
100%
that period.
It's
Yeah.
interesting that because, and it's a good expression being ground down because, I think about M&A and I think about how long a process takes. At some point, you kind of run out of steam. You run out of, I just can't be bothered with this discussion anymore. It's not worth it.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it's a long game, M&A, and funnily enough, I mean, I see a lot of people come and go into M&A as well. People that have been in agencies and feel like they would like to get into it, and I don't know why I have had some longevity. I mean, at this period now, we're getting close to 7-8 years of doing it because it is hard. It's hard and it's a long game. I mean, we've done deals that have been really short. We've managed to find a buyer within like 6 months and close the deal within 6 months. And it does happen when people are willing to break the rules, I guess, and do things their own way. But quite often we will come up against the system. So big holding companies, for instance, they have a certain way of doing things. They have team members that aren't entrepreneurs involved in the process, and they drag things out over a long period of time. And people lose the will to keep going within the deals. And some deals we're working on a deal at the moment that's probably been in the offing for almost 12 months.
Yeah.
And it just bounces backwards and forwards, and it's like, oh my God, are we going to carry on going?
Yeah, I mean, I've always found that in deals, and obviously we've done deals, sometimes they are shorter, sometimes they are longer. And there's often a sort of lack of transparency, and that's often deliberate, and it's because the buyer or the seller is kind of looking for an opportunity, or a change of climate that gives them an advantage. Yeah. So sometimes people do take their time, look, and they're just seeing what happens.
They do, yeah. There's a lot of window shopping in M&A on both sides, which can be quite difficult to deal with, particularly if we're working on the buy side, because I think there is a certain amount of our own reputations at stake if we're knocking on lots of doors. We speak to 50 to 100 agency owners every month, and I'm constantly talking to entrepreneurs and trying to figure out what they want and how I can help them. Deals can be a really great opportunity, and I think when everybody's on the same page and honest, those are the best types of deals. But quite often people are looking for opportunities and they're not being 100% open. Yeah. And they can make deals drag out for a long time. Yeah. Somebody came across an interesting expression the other day about sandbagging, which I'd not heard before, but you should Google it because it is an expression I've not come across. But basically, it's making your numbers sound much worse than they are, so that you get a better offer, and then when you are in the deal later on, you just smash the numbers out of the park.
That's brilliant.
Sandbagging. So people do sandbag quite a lot, particularly sellers. They make their numbers look far worse, so that they know as soon as they sign the deal that actually they can just smash the numbers out the park and get tons of money on the earn out. Yeah. But good luck to them.
So when you're meeting agency entrepreneurs, are there ever situations where you have a discussion and you're thinking, no, they're wrong, and that's you're never going to be able to sell this business, or equally, other situations where, wow, you've got something magical here, and what is it? What is it that helps you see those sort of things that determine the success or failure of these businesses? Yeah,
I mean, we do come across people that are just BSing the numbers. You can see that they're making it up. They're trying to get. I mean, really, it's just a lack of understanding about M&A and how deals work. They think that by lying about the numbers or bigging them up, that they're going to get a big offer with big multiples. But the reality is, during due diligence, all of that gets exposed. Yes. So it's just a waste of everybody's time. So we do get the occasional wrong un, that comes along. There is like a thing where you can spot entrepreneurs. Some people just want to get out of the business. They don't really like. They've ended up the boss almost through an accident, and they just want to get out. They want somebody else to take over, and they just want to go back to being part of a bigger team where they can hide a little bit. And one of the things that I really love about what I do is I just wouldn't get to meet people like yourself and other entrepreneurs who are brilliant and hugely talented, and because of what I am doing, and because I'm, I'm helping people at the highest level of the business to create and do, a deal or do something new, and put these dots together. I get to work with some absolute geniuses, some mad geniuses.
Yeah. But I think again that sets you apart because you appreciate the cocktail of businesses that are going to market, and within that mix is all about personality, aspirations, and a lot of people's blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
When you're going through these processes, do you ever get into discussions about but what happens after the deal? Because obviously some of this is about money, but it's not all about money. It's also about legacy. It's about actual literal exit sometimes, and also it's about building a business that can have a life beyond your own capabilities sometimes. So did you ever get into those sorts of discussions?
I mean, as a business, that's not part of our remit, but we certainly do discuss it. I mean, most entrepreneurs want to know what happens afterwards. But we don't get into the nuts and bolts of what an integration looks like. But certainly personal aspirations come in.
We were always more tuned into optimizing the sort of post-deal situation than just money. I think we were much more bothered about protecting our people, creating an environment of independence that allowed us all to sort of carry on the journey, even if we didn't own it anymore.
Yeah,
I think we were more bothered about that than the actual money.
I think it's quite important for acquirers, but people that buy those businesses, to not just get stuck in day one and start moving everything around, changing the furniture. Really to allow those businesses to bed in together alongside each other for a longer period of time, like 6 months, 12 months, something like that. But I mean, the thing about agency owners as well is that there are a lot of big personalities involved. There's a lot of introverts as well, equally. But I do see a lot of big personalities, and the tendency can be for those to clash if everybody has their own ideas about absolutely everything.
Yeah.
It's I think agencies is one of the things where democracy just doesn't work in agency land. I think it's great to have one person in charge who is kind of the visionary and the creative lead, and what they say more or less kind of goes, and then everybody works underneath that to make it go in the right direction. Yeah. But when you have tons of people all with their own ideas, all doing their own thing, all pulling in different directions, it doesn't last very long.
Over the course of our journey, in the acquisitions that we have done, mostly they've gone fairly well, and the key people have been there all the way through the deal and afterwards, and they've built good career, good new careers within. I think
you've got Iris actually has got, and your journey has got a really good reputation. I hear about it quite often because there's quite a number of acquisitions that you have done, and those founders have come out of their business, come out of Iris later on, with loads of good stuff to say about the journey, and I think it's quite well known that you've done a great job with that, Ian.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, you've got a very good reputation. But I think one striking thing about you, I think, is you're very down to earth, and you're not. You're a big guy, 6'4", 6'2", whatever.
6'1.5".
6'1.5", and you could use that to your advantage. But you're very genuinely a nice and kind person, and I think that goes a long way, particularly in being an entrepreneur. I mean, because you do hear about these people like Steve Jobs, for instance, who was horrible to everybody, allegedly, and people try and copy that as a pattern to go forward. But I see many more people that are very well known for being kind, who have given people opportunities when they shouldn't have been given them. They've seen something in somebody and given them an opportunity. Or just being kind at a moment when it was unexpected. And I think those people with those types of personalities can last a lot longer in business than the occasional genius who's nasty to everybody.
So if it's okay, I wouldn't mind just sort of moving on a little and talking more about kind of you as a disruptor And also, like, you know, your newer businesses and the things that you're kind of working on now, and also I've been reading quite a bit of late about AI and the opportunity or the threat of AI and what that means to, you know, entrepreneurs in our space.
Yeah. I guess I am a disruptor. I've always felt like I've been on the outside of the corporate world. I have been in the corporate world, but I haven't loved it. You know, when I left school, I got a great job working in the finance department of a big corporate, and I was there for a year, and it was probably the worst period of my life. But I mean, I've definitely wanted to disrupt things, and like I said before, you know, about the internet, I felt that it was a flattener for people with less to be able to create more, and at the same level of as companies that had much more resources. So definitely that's like a thing that has appealed to me. And one of the things that I've tried to do with M&A is to bring that to it. So one of the things I'm working on at the moment, for instance, I've started a platform called agencies.co, and my initial idea was, how can we get rid of all bankers and their fees?
What do you mean? We love them.
Well, you know, I mean, yeah, I still have to work. I work with some of the disruptive ones. Let's put it that way. You know, how can you remove them from the process, because they are what makes it excessively expensive to get into M&A. And so when I set up agencies, I was like, right, let's do this with no fees at all. So it's free to come on the platform. We take a percentage of the business when it sells. We've got to monetize it at some point. And I did have to row back on this a little bit, because there is a cost involved to doing quite a lot of stuff in M&A. But certainly agencies as a platform was there to provide entrepreneurs the opportunity to get in front of buyers, you know, people that wanted to buy agencies, and be able to do that where it was free or as unrestrictive as possible. And so, I mean, that passion for disrupting was definitely in agencies. And lots of people said to me when I started marketing agencies, aren't you putting yourself out of a job here, Andy? And at first I was thinking, no, I'm not doing that. I'm building something amazing. And then after about 6 months of very little money coming in, I was like, oh shit, yeah. But going forward, it definitely is a platform where bankers don't get tons of money for doing nothing. And that's, for me, the M&A world at the moment is full of very corporate people that don't really understand the journey of the entrepreneur on the other side of the table, and they just want to charge excessive fees. And in some ways, they are justified. I mean, it's expensive being a banker. You've got to, you know, wear nice suits. You've got to get chauffeured around in nice cars. So there's an expense that comes with that they've got to cover their costs. What I want to see is more people involved in M&A. And one of these conversations that we've had previously around your journey as well was one thing you said to me. It really stuck with me. It was you wish you'd started M&A sooner. And really, my message is to kind of preach that to people that don't feel that it's available to them yet, because it is. You know, anybody can buy another company, and then it just doubles the size of your business overnight. Yeah,
I think that's right. I think obviously one of the things about being an entrepreneur is, like, who says you can't? It's like
definitely.
The thing about being an entrepreneur is it is a journey that is littered with things that you've never done before, and M&A is just one of them.
Exactly.
So when you kind of apply the sort of one step at a time logic to it, it does start to become kind of, you know, a bit more interesting and a bit more accessible. I think one of the things that is just so interesting about M&A is that, you know, we talk about going to market or taking the business to market, and the truth is the market is so fragmented, and agencies are just not fixed points. You know what I mean? There's always a bit up or a bit down, or sandbagging, or you know, the time's not right, or there's a personal problem within one of the shareholders or whatever. So the nature of the businesses means that they're kind of all moving targets. So I think that the idea around agencies.co is like so good, because it starts to establish an actual market where there are more rules and a bit more clarity, a bit more transparency. also having been agency side for a long time and worked with a lot of agencies, quite often a lot of agencies just aren't looking to sell. They don't really know how to, or how to think about it, or when to time it, or the rest of it. So I think it's just such a great leveller for the sector. It puts more transparency in it, and also people can kind of dip their toe into the market just to see what they're worth.
Yeah, and I think that is the thing. The key thing for me with agencies is that most, and this happened to me when I was selling my company, when I was thinking about selling it. Most people don't want to pay those fees up front and risk not selling their business. And I had this. I mean, he's a great guy, and I'm still in touch with him. But he came and sat in my office, and he said, "Right, it's going to be £5,000 a month." And you're going to pay me, and I'm going to try and sell you business. And I was like, well, what happens if it doesn't sell? And he was like, well, nothing happens. I was thinking, well, hold on. So I'm going to give you $5,000 a month, and then nothing might happen. I mean, there was no guarantee to it. And I know that most, I mean, even I still knocking on doors with that kind of proposal for the larger companies, because there is a lot of work that comes with it. So there is some justification, but equally, for the smaller agency owners up to about 5 million in revenue, the risk for them adding that cost and nothing coming from it, is a bit of a stupid waste of money, to some degree. I'm hoping to transform the whole M&A space around marketing services.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. Please join us again and carry on exploring your own entrepreneurial wild side, and please access our series wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.